according to the Chicago Tribune, the Chicago Bears could be looking to hold on to Khalil Herbert until they get a certain player returning back, in which then could kind of change a little bit of things. We also have ESPN's first mock draft, in which they have the Bears getting a very big potential offensive lineman that could really help fit the Chicago Bears. And also, we're going to talk about why Caleb Williams has gotten overlooked yet again and how Matt Eberflus is really changing his operating, the way that he operates as a head coach, and is really benefiting Caleb Williams greatly. We're going to talk about all that, plus a little of the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start off with this Chicago Tribune. They played out this as far as in regards to Khalil Herbert. There's been a lot of speculation on what the future could hold for Khalil Herbert, especially as the Chicago Bears approach the trade deadline. And they say this: as part of the ongoing process, Herbert would have to bide his time. I imagine we'll see him get more work in the weeks to come, and he has value. He provides the offense with depth. How often do you see a running back go out with an ankle or knee injury? The Bears don't want to get caught shorthanded if something happens to Swift or Johnson. So Herbert has a solid role on this team, even if he hasn't gotten a lot of action through the first 6 games. Now, this has been a topic of conversation around the Bears for the last couple of weeks. Me, C-Dub, and Bobby had an episode all built around this topic, as well as what's going to happen with Khalil Herbert and if the Bears should look to move on from Khalil Herbert. We're here, according to the Chicago Tribune, one of the reasons that the Bears are holding on to him is because of that depth, which isn't too big of a shocker there, especially with the Bears' schedule getting a little bit more difficult. Maybe the Bears are looking at it and saying, listen, we're not using Swift right now, but we very well could, especially as we go forth and get into these divisional matchups. That's something that teams haven't really seen a lot of course, in previous years, but with this team, and maybe that can be a new wrinkle and dynamic that we implore with this offense, and I love that thinking. But the Chicago Tribune also throws in something on the depth conversation as well to say this, that Khalil Herbert wasn't just passed up by Roschon Johnson in terms of playing in the offense, that before Travis Homer went down with injury in week 3, that he was also somebody that passed Khalil Herbert up on that depth chart, according to the Chicago Bears and that offensive staff, which means that while the Bears aren't looking to move on from Khalil Herbert now, if Travis Homer comes back and they feel pretty confident in his ability to play and stay healthy going forward, that could also change and that Khalil Herbert could then be made available if they feel confident once Travis Homer does come back. Now, with the trade deadline quickly approaching, I think it's the second week of November. We're a few weeks away from that trade deadline coming up. You know, with Travis Homer placed on IR in week 3, it means that he's eligible to return. I think, in week 8, he'd be eligible to return around the same time as Ryan Bates. So, there's a possibility for that as well. So just keep up. This situation with Khalil Herbert is fluid. I do think that the Bears, I've said it before with the blitzing, right? I think that the Bears, they haven't had to go a lot to blitzing right now, and they're having success without doing that. And I do think that's something that as you get into the divisional games, that's a new wrinkle you can use and start blitzing more. And then your opposing teams don't have a lot of tape on that, especially with the new weapons that we've added on that front line. Maybe you could say the same thing about Khalil Herbert. While he's been a Bear for 4 years, going on 4 years now, having that dynamic between him and how Roschon has progressed, even with Khalil Herbert and now having Doug Kramer and what he's been able to do at fullback, maybe there's some chance that the Bears are trying to play a little bit of chess in a sense, versus checkers when it comes down to using Khalil Herbert, who's mainly just been used on special teams so far. So we'll see. Listen, when you have somebody like Khalil Herbert there as a depth piece for your team, it is a great luxury to have. And it is one that not a lot of teams are going to have a back that has done the things that Khalil Herbert has been able to do, just coming off your bench as that depth piece. And so the Bears, in a season where they are fighting, they're trying to compete for the playoffs, they are fighting in the toughest division in the game of football. All these things could play into the fact that you do want to hold on to that depth. And if it means you lose Khalil Herbert in the offseason, maybe the Bears are willing to risk it. And to move. I get it. While the thought process is it was easy to think, let's move Khalil Herbert, let's get some extra additional asset or a piece that we can move and try to get an offensive lineman. You got to have a partner on the other side of that phone. And if the Bears don't feel confident that they have that partner, that they have somebody, another team that's willing to give them the value that they have for it, yeah, you still lose that value for nothing in the offseason, which would suck. But the Bears could be just focused right now on the thing that we want them all to do. Put yourself in a position to win football games now, right? And Khalil Herbert could very well do that for the Chicago Bears team. So, it's going to be interesting to see how Ryan Poles maneuvers around this trade deadline. This is an important trade deadline for a few reasons. The Bears are competing in the deepest division in football. They also have one of their best records at this early part of the season in quite a while, right? And the playoffs are a realistic possibility for the Chicago Bears. And so whatever they do, whether it's keeping Herbert, whether it's moving Herbert, whether it's making a move elsewhere on the other team with other assets, whatever it is, everything should be built around winning now, right? And it's built around, yes, you still want to protect Caleb. You still want to put Caleb in a position that you can get these offensive weapons to use them correctly. But everything is built around winning. This season, we said that coming into the season. Yes, this is no longer a team that's rebuilding. It's a team now that's building. And in part of that building, winning is part of that. And if you can get to the point of making the playoffs, going on a playoff run, even winning one playoff game, it means so much for the development of all these young pieces you've accumulated over the years. And so I can't be mad if the Bears do and make moves that are built around this team winning now. And that could include keeping a talented player like Khalil Herbert, right? And so we'll see what happens with that, man. Ultimately, it comes down to we'll see what the Bears do. Their confidence in Travis Homer is, that really does show something, I think, for how they view Khalil Herbert. That Travis Homer, if he hadn't went down with injury, would be somebody we're seeing more than Khalil Herbert. But I think that ultimately injuries are a big thing in football. Hell, you just saw what the hell the Detroit Lions are going through now with Aiden Hutchinson, right? And so the Bears, in that sense, while DeAndre Swift has looked great, while Roschon needs more touches, all it takes is one of those guys to go down to drastically change that situation for the Bears, and then we'll see what happens there. Now, with that said as well, right, I want to talk a little bit about Caleb Williams. And while Caleb Williams did win the FedEx Air Player of the Week, he did not win the Offensive Player of the Week. That went to Derrick Henry and Sean Tucker, both running backs. And here's what I'll say. I don't understand. Well, I do understand it. The Chicago bias is real. And that's something that I've said before. And part of that is due to the history of this franchise. While I would love to do nothing but kill the national media on how they doubt and they treat our team, when it comes down to it, you got to prove it, right? You have to go out there and show that you're a franchise that is focused and is going to be able to win at a high level consistently. And unfortunately, the Bears have not done that. We just haven't done that. And while things are really coming together for Caleb Williams, and he's had 2 really big games in a row for the Chicago Bears, and I can't wait to see how this offense comes out of this bye week, completing 79.2% of his passes, showing what he can do, commanding that offense. Of course, I think Caleb Williams should have won the Offensive Player of the Week this week because I think that's just what it is. That was Caleb Williams' award to lose, in my opinion, when you look down at it. Traveling over to London, dealing with what he had to deal with there. Ultimately, it is what it is. Caleb Williams, to me, is the true Offensive Player of the Week. And regardless if he has the awards or not, the national media at some point is going to have to take notice of what Caleb Williams is doing. Now, I will say this. Caleb has to do it against the better teams that are coming up soon. And if Caleb is able to do some of the things he's done in the last couple of weeks against the divisional opponents in the NFC North, at that point, what left do you have to judge Caleb Williams on, right? That's the last test, that 3-game stretch where we play the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions all in a row. If Caleb Williams comes out of that, I would say even if he performs well in that, you don't even have to, if he goes 1-2 over that, right? Or the Bears go, because it's not just on Caleb. But if Caleb Williams performs well against those defenses, you got, at some point, the doubt around it has to stop. And I understand that there's always going to be doubt around a Bears quarterback and a Bears offense until we start winning more consistently. And that may take years to completely get over that hurdle. But the fact of the matter is this, to deny the people that keep denying that Caleb Williams is progressing. And even the Fields truthers, right, that have been so big on this, oh, well, look at what Justin's doing, and now he got benched, right? And I don't even like to bring, because it's not about Caleb versus Justin. Caleb Williams is our quarterback now, right? And while you have the people that are going to show pessimism no matter what until the Bears win an NFC North or they win a couple of playoff games, there's always going to be people that doubt it. And Caleb Williams has been far from perfect, right? He's been far from perfect, but he's progressing. And that's what you wanted. And, I tried to set this expectation and tell you guys, coming into the season, it wasn't going to be this linear thing where Caleb Williams starts and he looks generational or great or amazing from day one. I told you guys that. But what we're seeing now is him coming out on the other side of that. And to have a quarterback that's still commanding the offense, running the offense, having the wrist, running the plays, calling audibles, and just his command and his reads and things like that. Like, yeah, he still has some underthrows. He still makes some bad decisions. That's still there for Caleb Williams. And, it may be there forever to a degree. But the fact of the matter is how does he learn and grow from it over time? And Caleb Williams is showing a propensity and an ability to grow and learn on the fly. And in my opinion, you got to love that from Caleb Williams. So I give a lot of credit for Caleb Williams and how and the way he's been developing. And we just got to keep it going. And listen, Caleb Williams is a guy that uses all the doubt, all the talk as motivation. I don't want him to get too caught up in the weeds where he's reading all the blogs and everything like that. But I do love the fact that we got a quarterback that has that petty gene in him. Because I think some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time were some of the most petty motherfuckers on that football field. And you need a little bit of that. And so as Caleb's growing, also is Matt Eberflus growing. And we got to talk about that. Matt Eberflus, as a defensive-minded head coach, typically when you have defensive-minded head coaches, you have teams that run the ball heavily. And the Bears have been that over the last few years. Since Matt Eberflus has come in town, the Bears have had one of the best running games, and we've been so run reliant, right? So reliant on our run game that, at times we said that we should and wanted and needed to pass more. Well, now when you start seeing it, the Bears are starting to pass more and more. And the growth and development that Matt Eberflus is showing in Caleb Williams, when you look at the run and pass balance for the Chicago Bears, the Bears are starting to be one of those teams that are passing more and more. And of course, those numbers are inflated a little bit by that 52 pass game by Caleb Williams. I think it was 52, right? It was 52, 54, something like that. But right now, we're starting to become one of the more pass-happy teams in the NFL. Now, that's when we hold the lead. And typically what the Bears have done in previous years is that when we don't have the lead, the Bears have always – or when we had the lead, the Bears have relied or leaned very heavily on their run game. Right now, we're starting to see the Bears be more aggressive in their play calling. And yes, that goes a lot to Shane Waldron, but also in Matt Eberflus and his ability to agree to allow Shane Waldron to do that. This Bears team is showing an amount of confidence in Caleb Williams that I think right now it can go unnoticed unless you're really breaking down how things have changed over the course of time for Caleb. Yes, he has the 7 touchdowns and 1 interception, completing over 74% of his passes. Like, Caleb Williams is looking good, but also this team and this offense is trusting Caleb Williams. And to me, that says a lot. You have to trust your guys. And with the Bears showing that trust in Caleb and trust in his growth and who he's turning into as a quarterback, we're starting to see the offense evolve as well. And Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron evolving as offensive coordinator, how they're running this team. And so the evolution of the Bears is there. If you look at all the data, we're changing from an offense that has been very old school to more traditional offense. It's happening slowly. The more up-tempo offense, right? Running the more up-tempo, giving Caleb Williams the command of that and being able to go no huddle at times is not something you want to see a whole lot, right? Especially with the rookie quarterback. But what we're showing, what a rookie season is to lay down a foundation. And the Bears are laying down that foundation now with Caleb Williams, and we're having really good success in doing that. And I think ultimately, as we keep growing and evolving, as this team keeps growing and evolving in their mentality and how we run offense, you got to give some credit for that. It's not all been perfect. It's not all been pretty. It hasn't been all that, right? And we're still going to have our ugly games. Some more ugly games could very well be popping up sooner rather than later with how difficult these divisional matchups are going to be. But we're showing that growth. And I think that's important for Matt Eberflus, especially for how the season started and going back to a team where we're talking about, hey, could we end up moving on from Matt Eberflus? So, again, I we'll have that conversation as we get closer to the end of the season. But I do want to acknowledge the growth that this team is having, and that confidence in Caleb Williams is paying off right now. And we got to see if it's going to continue to develop and go that way. I, for one, hope that it will. Now, with that said, ESPN, Jordan Morgan had his first mock draft for ESPN, and they had the Bears drafting Jonah Savaiinaea, is believe how you pronounce it. Savaiinaea is how you pronounce it. There you go. I think that's right. He's from Arizona. He's projected to go in the first round. This is a guy that's extremely physical up front, has a very solid base. And I think overall, like when you look at the Bears and how they like to have players that can play multiple positions as well, he's projected as a guard, but he has the flexibility to play tackle as well. And I like that for the Chicago Bears. And Savaiinaea, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, just looks like to be a player that, the fact that he's on the radar now for the Bears draft him is somebody that I'm going to keep a look for as well. And so it'll be interesting to see what Ryan Poles does with the offensive line this season. And as now mock drafts are starting to come out, where the Bears are slated to go and players that have mocked, because, typically, especially if they come and they go into the Senior Bowl or anything like that, the Bears are definitely going to give them a look. And I can't wait to see how diligent Ryan Poles is about going out and finding offensive linemen for this Bears team, because, listen, that is the one hole so far in Ryan Poles, is his evaluation of offensive line talent, right? Especially with free agency. I think he did pretty good drafting Darnell Wright, but again, you want to see the intentionality in going out there and getting an offensive lineman. And so one thing that we've seen that we like on that offensive line are players that are able to play multiple positions. And Jonah Savaiinaea, it looks to shape up to be a really good prospect there for the Chicago Bears. I say it different. Now C-Dub's going to get on me because I'm saying it different every single time. So there you go on that one. Savaiinaea, I think is how you I think I'm getting it right. Am I thinking too much? Let me know down below. With that said, though, we got one voicemail I want to get into, and this one, of course, this one's from the Old Faithful, from Darius.
What's going on, guys? Darius from Dallas here. Super excited about the game yesterday, man. It was a sort of refreshing, man, to kind of see our offense clicking the way it did. Started off a little slow in the first quarter, but we absolutely took off after that. Like everything I'm seeing, I think Shane Waldron had a couple good play designs that game. So for as critical as I've been on you, Shane, you called a good game yesterday. Great game yesterday, actually. Only thing that I would say still needs to be done on the offensive side of the ball is two things. Roschon needs to get more carries up the middle. Sorry, Swift is doing a great job, don't get me wrong, with the outside zone stuff. And I feel like if you stretch that defensive line out wide with running those outside zone runs, because they're expecting, that they got to hurry up and cover the edge, that's the perfect time to give it to Roschon up the middle, let him go get 4 or 5 yards. And that's what Roschon does every time he touches the ball and runs up the middle. He's getting at least 4 or 5 yards. I think that's going to be beneficial for us, definitely in the playoffs when we need to run the ball and all that type of stuff. I think that's one little thing on the offense that I would ask Shane Waldron to do. And also, keep those up-tempo plays going. That's where Caleb is comfortable. He's comfortable running the up-tempo style. We don't have to do it the whole game, okay? But we can do it at least, here and there. Just out of the blue. Let's hit him with a hurry-up, I saw that, I can't remember, maybe it was Mullion Hall or somebody that said Shane Waldron is one of the only offensive coordinators, and the Bears are one of the only offenses where we don't have scripted plays for the first drive. I feel like that needs to change. We need to have some scripted up tempo stuff to start off that game hot, start off fast, man. And while also the last thing I want to talk about is I heard the last mailbag that you did, Haize. The boy Fred mentioned something about Myles Garrett, and man, I just think as bad as we need offensive line help. And y'all know me, I'm always talking about offensive line. I love offensive line help if we can get it. But man, as competitive as this division is, and as many high-powered offenses as there are in this division, we have to get another dominant pass rusher on the other side of Montez if we're going to be able to say we outright are going to win this division. I love what our defense is doing. I love the way that they're playing. But the one thing I feel like we're missing is just that consistent pass rush. I feel like we're not pressuring the quarterback enough, even though we do have some guys that are getting sacks. But if we want to win this division, man, we have to have two dominant defensive ends. And I think that'll be what will take us over the top, man, and deep into the playoffs. But let me know what y'all think. Catch us up, Bear Down.
All right, Darius, you touched on a lot there. I do think that the offense did have a slow start. We had 3 total yards of offense in the first quarter of that game, but we came out of it. And like you said, with Shane Waldron calling better plays, right? And I think that the growth that Shane Waldron has had in the way that he's called plays and being more dynamic in that is something that needs to be studied, and the fact that it needs to be acknowledged because he's done a really good job at adapting after that players meeting, and I got to give him credit for that. And I agree with you as well that Roschon does need more touches. We need more of that bruising running game, right? And I get it. DeAndre Swift is in rhythm right now, and the Bears may not want to disrupt that rhythm. But I think overall you want to be able to go between those tackles. You want to be able to pound in your running game and be able to get up. And so hopefully the Bears are able to adapt that a little bit more. And I think when you go up tempo, you may see a little bit more of that. So, all the things that you pointed out there as well. Caleb Williams being comfortable in a more up tempo offense, I think it's just things that fit him. And you want to put Caleb Williams in things where he feels natural and he doesn't have to think too much. You still want him thinking because he's a quarterback, but you want him to be in a comfortable position. I think the Bears are doing a lot better job at getting in those positions. And so let's see how that continues to develop for him and for the team as well. And then as far as the scripted, so yeah, the Bears didn't initially have it. That was a couple of weeks ago. They've moved more to scripting the first 15 plays over the last 2 weeks. And I think you're seeing that pay off as well for the Chicago Bears. I think you're seeing that pay off hugely for this Bears team. So I think those things are going in the right direction. And again, it shows the adaptability and Shane Waldron listening to the changes that need to be made. And that's all good. Now, as far as Myles Garrett, yes, if we get Myles Garrett, that is a move to show that you're trying to win this division. Now, I disagree with you that the Bears need to have a better, we're towards the top of the league of getting pressure on quarterbacks. Now, we're not getting a lot of sacks, right? We're not towards the top of the league of sacks. We're not at the bottom either. But I think the Bears have a very and extremely good pass rush. Now, we need to see how it is against the better teams. But, of course, a player like Myles Garrett would take that into the stratosphere. So, if the Bears make a move like that, that's a move that puts the division on notice. And, listen, the other teams in the division, I think they're going to make moves. I think we're going to see some of those teams make moves. And if they do, the Bears maybe force their hand and maybe make some moves too if they're going all in this year on making sure that they can try to get those playoffs. So we'll see what happens there. But great voicemail, Darius. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. That's the wrong number. 270-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. Thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.